I would like to call to order the Marshall City Council meeting for Monday, May 3rd, 2021. Clerk Nelson, will you please call the roll?
Mayor Karen,
Here, Naples, Florida.
Councilmember Gates, Councilmember Rice,
Present Marshall.
Councilmember Schwartz,
Here, Marshall.
Councilmember Traver,
Here, Marshall.
Councilmember Underhill,
Here, Marshall.
Councilmember Wolfersberger.
Here, Marshall.
We have a quorum, Your Honor.
Thank you. We will start this evening with an invocation from Brandon Crawford of Grace Baptist Church, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Thank you, Brandon.
Let's pray. Our Lord, in your word, you tell us to pray for our governing authorities. So tonight I pray for our mayor, for our city manager, for all the members of the assembled council. Lord, I ask that you give them wisdom to govern amid all the conflicting interests and issues of our day. That you give them wisdom to understand the true needs of our people. That you give them a desire to do what is right. But I pray that you give them the ability to work together in harmony, even when there are honest disagreements. That you'd give them personal peace in their lives and joy in their work. And Lord, I ask that you would awaken in them a desire to know and to do your will. Lord, I also pray for the agenda set before them today. Give them assurance of what would please you and what would benefit those who live and work around this city. Lord, I pray all of these things in your son's name. Amen.
Thank you, Brandon. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty
and justice for all.
All right, we will start this evening with the approval of agenda, starting with public comment on agenda items, followed by the consent agenda. Under item 12A, reports and recommendations, we have the NDOT Transportation Economic Development Fund Category B grant. 12B, we have the NDOT Small Urban Grant Project Agreement. 12C, we have the Finance and Accounting Services Contract. 12D, we have the Michigan Hard Cap Exemption. 12E, we have the Downtown Retailers Outdoor Bazaar Marketplace request. 12F, we have to schedule a public hearing for the fiscal year 2022 budget, followed by item 13A under appointments and elections for appointment of city attorneys, followed by public comment on non-agenda items and council and manager communications. Any additions, deletions, or questions or comments on the agenda?
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
I believe Tom has an addition that he might want to make.
Yes, if I could, I'd like to add 12G is scheduling a special meeting for a review of Marshall House proposals at Ketchum Park. I'd like to discuss what date and time would work best for the council. And then 12H would be to schedule a work session for August 13th and August 14th at 5:00 p.m. and on the 14th at 7:30 a.m. I'd like to add those for discussion at the end of your agenda.
Any additional additions or deletions to the agenda?
I'll amend my motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Support.
We have a motion from member Wolfersberger, support from member Gates. We'll do a roll call vote, please.
Member Gates,
Yes.
Member Rice,
Yes.
Member Schwartz,
Yes.
Member Traver,
Yes.
Member Underhill,
Yes.
Member Wolfersberger,
Yes.
and Mayor Karen.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. That brings us to public comment on agenda items. Anyone wishing to address the council may do so for a maximum of 5 minutes, stating your name and address for the record. Please use the raise hand function on Zoom to indicate that you would like to speak. All right, seeing no hands, we will move on to the consent agenda. Item 7A, we have the third quarter financial report. 7B, we have the third quarter investment portfolio. Item 7C, we have the third quarter cash and investment position report. Item 7D, we have the Marshall Academy concert event. 7E, we have the annual poppy sales. 7F, we have the city council minutes from the regular session on Monday, April 18th, 2021. And 7G, we have the city bills totaling $201,388.61. Any questions or comments on the consent agenda? All right, hearing none, I'd seek a motion.
So moved.
So moved.
Support.
We have a motion from member Gates and support from member Traver. We'll do a roll call vote, please.
Member Rice,
Yes.
Member Schwartz,
Yes.
Member Traver,
Yes.
Member Underhill,
Yes.
Member Wolfersberger,
Yes.
Mayor Karen,
Yes.
and Member Gates.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. That moves us down to item 12A under reports and recommendation, the MDOT Transportation Economic Development Fund Category B grant. I believe Marguerite will be briefing us on this.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Tonight, I have for you the Category B grant through MDOT, the TEDF program they have. This grant is for non-federal aid streets, so local streets, and for streets that are not part of an all-season route through the county. We have unsuccessfully applied for this grant the last 2 years, and we would like to continue applying. And this report is asking for your permission, and the resolution attached is stating such that the clerk and myself can act on behalf of the city for in regards to this grant application. The applications are due June 1. So our plan with this grant this time around is changed slightly from the 2 previous years. We are going to apply for work on Liggett Road, which is the same as the last 2 years. But we are also going to extend the add in work on East and West Prospect Street. With the street improvement millage that we are currently working under, we are planning to redo those streets. We are also planning to replace 3,000 feet of water main along sections of that street. So that is a good, that's a positive when it comes to scoring points on the grant. And so we're asking for your approval in applying for this grant. The estimates put together are attached in the report. The grant is worth a maximum of $250,000. It requires a 50% match. Based on the estimates we have there, we would be contributing $440,000 to the project, not including the water portion of the project. And this is just a great, really, I think it's a good way to capitalize on our or improve our funds that we are raising through the street millage, and try to combine all that together and score well on the grant in an effort to make our money go further. I'm happy to take questions.
I do have just one quick one, Marguerite. The the 440,000, are we required to reserve that or tag it in any way that limits our options with those funds until we hear whether we get the grant or not? Is there any limitations it puts on us?
No, this just states that the city is willing to spend that should we be awarded the grant. Before that money actually gets spent, there would be another approval process. So we would still have an opportunity for some reason to deny the grant if we were to be awarded. And then therefore we wouldn't have to spend the money.
And there's no concern that those funds will be available from the bond money?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Marguerite, is there a time frame on which they release the winners of the grant or who they've given the request to? Do they give that kind of information?
I don't know. There is, we applied, I'm trying to remember, I applied last year and I just kind of continued the same application we had done, my predecessor had done. I think we find out sometime in late fallish timeframe. So it's due June 1, and I believe we find out sometime in the fourth quarter of the calendar year.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from council regarding the grant request? All right, hearing none, the recommendation is to approve the resolution authorizing the application to the Michigan Department of Transportation for the TEDF Category B program for Leggett Road and Prospect Street.
So move.
Second.
We have a motion from member Schwartz, support from member Rice, and we'll do a roll call vote, please.
Member Traver,
Yes.
member Underhill,
Yes.
member Wolfersberger,
Yes.
Mayor Karen,
Yes.
member Gates,
Yes.
member Rice,
Yes.
and member Schwartz.
Yes.
Motion carried.
All right, thank you. That moves us on to item 12B, the MDOT Small Urban Grant Project Agreement. And I believe Marguerite is also going to brief us on this one.
Yes, that's correct. So we've been working with our consultant, ENG Inc., out of Grand Ledge on the design for the small urban project, which is a rotating schedule with the county. So we're part of a small urban area and we work with the county on who gets awarded the grant in specific years. So this year is our year and the design of the project is complete and it is out to bid. The bids are not in yet, but as part of that work, MDOT sends us an agreement so that when the bids are in and the bid is awarded, well, prior to the bid being awarded, MDOT has to have this agreement from the city, which states that we are willing and able to contribute our portion of the project. If you remember, the small urban grant is for $375,000 towards the transportation portions of the project. We are also doing some water main replacement on this project. So we're going to be responsible for that. We are also doing sanitary laterals and water services on East Drive for this project. And the city is also responsible for that. So it's a little different in the fact that we're approving this agreement based on the engineer's estimate of the cost. So the engineer's estimate is a total of $941,000. And the transportation portion of that is $719,000, of which MDOT is paying $375,000. So the city's portion of the transportation costs are $221,400. Also, as part of the project, we are agreeing to, excuse me, I said that wrong. The transportation portion of the project is $344,600. The water main and lateral services portion is $221,400. So with this agreement and your approval tonight, you're approving that the clerk sign the agreement and approve funding of the project that is not covered by MDOT. In the fiscal effects, it outlines which capital line items and which funds certain costs are coming from. I'm happy to take questions.
Marguerite, you mentioned service lines. Is that just the service lines we're doing to those East Drive properties for the county, for the new construction, or are we doing service line replacement here as well?
We are just doing the water services with the county. They've given us the lot sizes that they plan to install on the east side of East Drive. And so that's what we are doing the services to. We're not doing any lead line replacement with this project.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any other questions for Marguerite? All right, hearing none, the recommendation is to approve the resolution authorizing the clerk to sign the agreement with the Michigan Department of Transportation for the 2021 Small Urban Grant Contract number 21-5123.
So moved.
Support.
All right, we have a motion from member Wolfersberger and support from member Schwartz. And we'll do a roll call vote, please.
Member Underhill,
Yes.
Member Wolfersberger,
Yes.
Mayor Karen,
Yes.
Member Gates,
Yes.
Member Rice,
Yes.
Member Schwartz,
Yes.
and Member Traver.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. That moves us to item 12C on the agenda, the Finance and Accounting Services Contract with Woodhill Group. And Tom, if you could please on this, please.
Yes, we were very fortunate in finding the Woodhill Group after John Bartlett retired in January. Karen Lancaster, who's on the call or on the Zoom meeting here tonight, has been our contact, even though we have the full resources of the company. Karen has come in weekly to work on projects. Very successful. That we'd like to let you know is that the 2 deficit elimination plans were approved by Treasury, the first submittal. We also now have a letter of approval of reconsideration, so we can move forward with the bond sale here in a couple of weeks. Karen was very instrumental in doing that work. Also, she's been monitoring the financials that you approved tonight. Those reports came through her. Also, she put the budget together that you'll be talking about later today or tonight. So we have been unsuccessful in trying to, we did a national search for a finance director with a couple applications. And we won't get into the individual people, but for reasons they were unavailable to us. And so knowing that we need to really monitor the deficit elimination plans for the next 2 years and what Karen had put together on this with Courtney Associates, we'd like to recommend that we continue with the contracted interim finance director with the Woodhill Group. The contract for the next budget year from July 1 to June 30, 2022 is for $90,000. We estimated that to fill the finance director's position, we'd be spending over $110,000. So this would be under the cost of having a finance director in-house. The other thing we are looking at, we have an employee who has shown an interest but needs training to become the finance director. And so this would also be some of Karen's responsibility, is to mentor and watch the pace of that employee to see if in a year, if they would be able to do the job full time. So we're recommending tonight is that you approve the amendment to the agreement, which we already have with the Woodhill Group for the period of July 1, 2021 through June 30th, 2022.
Any questions?
Just briefly, I agree with you, Tom. Woodhill Group and Karen have been very instrumental and very pleased with what they're doing, and thank you. If we do the agreement and we find a replacement, or the person becomes capable of doing the position before the year's up, is there any clause in the contract that we could terminate? You know?
Well, first of all, and Karen's just turned her mic on there. This is a not to exceed amount. So Karen, would you be willing to sort of answer that question for Councilmember Schwartz?
Sure, certainly. Yes. So if anything happens and either the person that we are training, super comfortable and is ready to go, we can step aside at any time, right? And also if you find a finance director, so you never know, in this kind of market, what's going to happen. So if you had a finance director candidate that you wanted to interview in September, right, then that's fine. Woodhill would commit to, the transition with that new person, and then we'd be done. So there's nothing holding the council to that contract for a year. There's no penalty clause. There's no, you owe us the money if you terminate the contract. We wouldn't do that.
Thank you. And like I mentioned before, I didn't know you were on here, but doing a great job. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
This isn't, I apologize, Tom. I got the impression from what you were saying that we were going to stop looking for a finance director. So that's not the case. We're going to keep the job listing out there, that kind of thing.
I think we will. We'll probably look at it, restructure it a little bit, but we'd like to give our individual a chance at the job. So, I think we would, if the performance wasn't there, we would step in and then re-advertise. I don't think we're going to plan to re-advertise immediately, but we would like to give the individual an opportunity to show their capabilities in the job.
And I guess without getting, I don't want to get into a personnel issue, but is it so it's not like they were missing a degree or something. It's something they can accomplish in a year.
I guess I'm looking to Karen, and we feel yes. The answer is under Karen's mentorship and expertise of her many years of being a finance director. And Karen, you can step in here. What's your feelings?
Yeah. So one of the things that I've done in many places is develop training plans. So typically in a year-long time period, we kind of cover everything we would run into. So think annual audit, budget, those kinds of things, those annual filings we have to do, all that comes in the period of a year. And what the training plan will do is just break it down month by month. Here's what's happening this month. Here's what we're going to train on. Here's what you need to be comfortable with at the end of the training period. So for example, annual audits coming up. We have brand new auditors. So what does an audit schedule look like? How do you run an audit? What do the auditors expect? What do you have to do as a finance director? So those will all be in that training plan. And then as I train, I'll sign off that I've trained, and the individual I'm training will sign off that they understand that they've been trained and they don't have any questions. Or if they do have additional questions, or I'm concerned about, like, they need a little more time, then I just move that, keep that moving along in the training plan. So that way Tom can see how that's progressing, right? So we want to make sure that the person that's going to be here is really comfortable with everything that's going on.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that, Karen. I believe a training plan and succession planning, not only for the finance department, but for all of our departments needs to be a top priority for us. And that should be top of mind. Absolutely. So thank you for that.
You bet.
All right. Any other questions regarding the finance and accounting services contract? All right, hearing none, the recommendation is to accept the proposal from the Woodhill Group of Royal Oak, Michigan for $90,000 to provide finance and accounting services from July 1, 2021 to June 20, 2022.
So moved.
We have a motion from Member Underhill and support from Member Rice. We'll do a roll call vote, please.
Member Wolfersberger,
Yes.
Mayor Karen,
Yes.
Member Gates,
Yes.
Member Rice,
Yes.
Member Schwartz,
Yes.
Member Traver,
Yes.
and Member Underhill.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you very much, Council. Karen's been great to have on staff. So if we could steal her from her hometown and bring her, we would. So, but she's not ready to move.
Yeah, thank you, Karen. We're excited to work with you. All right, next on the agenda, we have item 12D, the Michigan hard cap exemption.
Tracy, why don't you go ahead? And we've done this for several years, so, but go ahead.
Okay, the Michigan hard cap exemption is part of Public Act 152 of 2011, which limits the amount that the public employer can spend on employee health care. We have met the hard cap for several years, and I think it's been the last 3 years we've had to ask council to exempt us from meeting that hard cap. This year, our Blue Cross rates went up 6.47%. I believe the hard cap rates only went up about 3%. So we are again above the hard cap. We did look at other companies other than Blue Cross. We got some pretty good rates from Priority Health, and we're still looking into if it is a possibility for us to switch to Priority Health, but their rates are still above the hard cap. So we are asking council to once again exempt us from meeting the hard cap.
Thank you, Tracy. When will we know what the information is regarding the Priority Health bid, and if that's possible for us to make that switch?
We have the rates. We are looking into, because with our union contracts, we have to be substantially equivalent. And that includes the network of doctors as well as prescription coverage and the plans that we are offering our employees. The plans are equivalent. We are looking into the doctors and prescriptions. I am expecting more information this Wednesday from our agent.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Tracy regarding the hard cap exemption? All right, hearing none, the recommendation is to adopt the resolution to exempt the City of Marshall from the requirements of Public Act 152 of 2011.
So moved.
Support.
We have a motion from Member Wolfersberger and support from Member Schwartz, and we'll do a roll call vote, please.
Member Gates,
Yes.
Member Rice,
Yes.
Member Schwartz,
Yes.
Member Traver,
Yes.
Member Underhill,
Yes.
Member Wolfersberger,
Yes.
and Mayor Karen.
Yes.
Motion carried.
All right, thank you, Tracy. Next, we will move down to item 12E, the Downtown Retailers Outdoor Bazaar / Marketplace. And the Director McDonald that's going to brief us on this one, or Tom?
I'll start out just for a second here. This request came in when I was on vacation. So Director McDonald and other city staff worked on the request. So I'll turn that over to them.
Hello, Council. We had, city staff had been approached by some downtown retailers about holding a marketplace bazaar on Michigan Avenue. They indicated with the lack of business with COVID and all the social distancing requirements, this looked like a good method they had saw other towns use. And of course, they wanted to try it here in Marshall. So I believe Karen Drenth is one of our, I don't know what you call attendees. So she can probably answer more particular questions. But again, it'd be the last Saturday of the month for 4 Saturdays throughout the summer. We would just be closing the big block down, probably shut it down about 9 o'clock so we can get everything moved, and then it would probably open up shortly after 4:30. The retailers group in conjunction with MEDA would be responsible for who goes where and some of the particulars, but I won't steal Karen's thunder and let her address some of them.
Hello, Council. I hope you all are doing well. I believe in your packets there were several documents that we've put together, including a health and safety plan, a list of the participating retailers, and also some background documents. So it is quite a big group of retailers that are interested in conducting this outdoor market bazaar, and we feel like we have a good plan for social distancing. So we feel like we can conduct this very safely. So at this point, I would just answer any questions that you might have in any particulars or more clarifications that might be helpful.
Thanks, Karen. Are there any questions for Karen from the council?
Well, I wanted to share. So Pam Wolfersberger, our director of the farmers market, reached out to me. I don't know if she's on the Zoom meeting here, but she just mentioned that, of course, with traffic going down onto Green Street and passing through that corridor, just for everybody to be aware that traffic might get a little congested there and parking might get a little tighter in that area. She wasn't opposed to the bazaar. I think she just wanted to make sure everybody is aware, and she's hoping that parking right next to the market there will still be reserved for market customers only. By next to it, I mean right in that lot, right to the east of where the market takes place. So that was what she wanted to share.
Yeah, and Pam was on our call, our last retailer call, both Pam and Kathy Miller as representatives of the farmers market. And then as Jacob shared that they were very supportive, we're also working with them to try to, in general, on Saturdays, get traffic going back and forth between the two events. The nice thing is this won't start until say 10 o'clock-ish. So there's only a couple hour overlap between the market and the downtown, because the market, most of the foot traffic is earlier in their session. So that is helpful.
One thing I will say, it probably will increase traffic a little bit, but I think the way the economy's hit, this is probably a good problem for us to be discussing. We can kind of limit speeds with some traffic devices, and I hope that each group supports each other, and maybe we can really make this a gangbuster event.
I know Pam and I had talked about this a little earlier as well, obviously. She actually even suggested that possibly on those Saturdays down, that section of street by the market, we have no parking on the street. Again, I'm not sure. It seems like possibly the last 2 Saturdays of this are going to coincide with the construction on Mansion. So it could shift a lot of traffic down to Green. So I don't know what your thoughts are on that, Scott, whether restricting parking along that section of Green right out in front of the right out in front of the farmer's market might improve pedestrian safety.
I think it would help, but I certainly want some input from them groups. I mean, at the end of the day, I may get some angry phone calls, but I'm not really going to be impacted. So I would want to make sure, that we have support of the people it's going to impact directly. But
right,
yeah, I think that would be one option, and maybe some barricading and signs for where the main crossing is there in the middle of the block.
Yeah.
I just had a few concerns with this, and closing off, Michigan Avenue is a pretty big deal, not only for, the businesses downtown, but, like we said, that's an emergency route for I-94 if anything were to happen. And it just is going to increase the traffic on those side roads. And with a first time event, I guess what I would maybe like to see or suggest is that we maybe not approve or take a look at all of these events at one time, but see how the first one goes. If we are able to, get the public to come out, and it would benefit to close down the whole street, I certainly think we could do that, but it is going to be disruptive, and I would hate to, cause that disruption if, we didn't have the turnout that we were looking for. Of course, we want to be supportive of all the local downtown businesses, and I understand that you're trying to differentiate this from the sidewalk sales, but I think there's some different options that we could do, not only with the sidewalks, but also the parking spaces that might be a little easier to start with, as opposed to closing down the whole section of the road.
So Joe, just to a couple things. The first one is actually Memorial Day weekend. So I think that is going to be a slower weekend than the others. So I think that's a good way to kind of test out our policies and procedures and kind of ramp up this event. As with any event, the first one is going to be slower than subsequent. We've learned that with Girls Night Out and other events we've had. So I would be hesitant to rely on just one event to determine whether this should be a sequence of 4. The other concern that I have is people need to staff these. And we talked about at the retailer group whether we would ask for 1 to start with or do the 4. And the overwhelming response from the retail community is if they're going to need to staff and invest in a canopy to cover, they really want support of council to do all 4 for this summer. There was discussion about using parking spots versus the street, but that really doesn't feel like a safe place to move wares and have people moving about. And it still does not expand the walkability and spread out people between the things that we would be able to do from a social distancing standpoint that having the road closure will. So again, our busier times are afternoon for shopping, and I feel like we're not going to have a lot of overlap with the farmers market. I feel like we can support both events downtown without causing a lot of stress. We have a lot more people that come down for, say, the Christmas parade and things like that, and we do have parking to support those. So I again would really ask council to consider doing all 4 so that the retailers can make the investment for a 4 event series.
Tom, go ahead, please.
One thing, Mr. Mayor, you brought up that's very important to the event. If for some reason I-94 is closed, Michigan Avenue is the emergency route, then MDOT will require the removal of the event immediately so that traffic could flow using Michigan Avenue. So it happens once in a while. I'm hoping it never happens to the point where all the traffic has to come through, but there could be very short notice where the event would need to move off the street so that traffic could flow. Again, 911 will contact our local police and if that occurs, but there could be that possibility that the retailers have to understand that they could be asked to vacate in minutes notice if that occurred. Again, there's a chance, but I just want to mention that if it happened, it would have to happen very quickly.
Yep, we did talk about that. We're aware that events like the Blues Fest, we had heard that is a precautionary thing we have to be ready for. And that's not a problem. The stores will have additional staff inside the store and at the outside venue. So the inside staff could help to move things very quickly. So thank you for making sure we were aware of that, and we are. So thank you.
I have a question, Karen, with regard to the approving one versus approving all four. How would that impact your marketing plans? I mean, are you planning to market it as 4 bazaars throughout the summer, or what were the plans for that?
Yes, we are. So obviously that would be additional advertising costs, poster costs, and things like that. If we were to not get approval for all 4, it is definitely part of our marketing plan to make this a series similar to the Music of the Fountain and other things that we've been successful for, and Girls Night Out as well. The postcard promotions and things list all events for that reason. Save on marketing costs.
One other consideration, MDOT doesn't like to close down Michigan Avenue, and usually they only allow so many a year. Have we taken that in consideration at all, Tom? If they use up 4, do we have other events we need to be concerned with, and will MDOT even approve this?
I turn to Scott and Marguerite because they've done the research on this.
Yeah, Jim, one thing we have found with MDOT, because of the COVID pandemic, the state has really relaxed rules. So I think this year, the city as a whole is probably going to get a free pass and probably have as many events as we wish. I don't know how far in the future that is going to go. But I think for this summer, particularly the negative impact on the economy, the MDOT is loosening up.
Okay, good. Just maybe keep that in mind for years down the road, Karen, if you want to make this annual.
Yeah, we had a call with them early on in the COVID period, if you will, the pandemic period, and had those conversations that Scott's talking about in general about their flexibility, and they've been a great partner. So thanks. Yep.
Karen, has the DDA been presented this plan? I know generally they're the ones that come to us with the recommendation for road closures, especially for Blues Fest and things like that.
No, the DDA does only Blues Fest because that's a DDA event. So the others actually, whether it be the Cruise to the Fountain comes from the Calhoun County Fairgrounds, the Christmas Parade comes from the co-chairs for that. So this wouldn't be something they would typically bring.
I think it's a great idea, and I hope it's successful. And I agree that with events like this, it takes a couple of them to really gain momentum, both from visitors standpoint, tourists, local community, but also from participants. I'm hoping that if this is approved, you see more engagement from additional stores downtown to come join. A little longer list than what's on here so far. Just a couple questions. One being, do you have any plans for music? I think that could be a nice touch to include for live music. And then also, this might be a question for Eric, but with our social district, are people allowed to drink on the street as they walk through the bazaar?
On Michigan Avenue itself, probably not. On the sidewalks, no problem.
Can we look into that then? I think that might be a nice added perk for people to stroll, to be able to have their cup with them.
I will verify that. I will verify that. I know MDOT originally was okay with the rights of way. The roadway itself, they were a little concerned about even with the close, but I will verify.
Okay. And then the other question was for Karen. Do you have any plans for live music?
We don't at this time. That has been discussed that might be a nice touch, but we wanted to start out with it kind of on a small scale and manageable. We also did have calls with the health department. So the call with the city health department and NADA, just to kind of talk through those scenarios. And, with music, you worry a little bit more about crowds. Now, if vaccination path continues on a good trajectory, maybe later this summer, that would be an option. But I think at this point, it's a little premature to kind of throw music in the mix and have a risk of crowd. So we don't have that in our current plan.
Okay, and just to clarify, I was talking just real small scale, one person band like you would see at the farmer's market, just kind of background music, background noise as you're strolling. So nothing to attract a big crowd, but
No mosh pit.
no mosh pits.
Yeah, that is something that would be nice to contemplate. We'll have to think about that. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Also, Council, in your report, and I'm hoping Karen has seen the report. There's 6 bullet points that Director McDonald has in there for responsibilities of the event sponsor. My next question is actually to Karen. Is one of the things in the recommendation is also that you are insured, and the city is made as a second insured, also insured. So who would that insurance policy be coming from?
No, I actually did not receive the packet information that you're talking about right now. So I can't really speak to it. So I guess if someone can forward it to me right now, I could speak to it perhaps.
Is anybody forwarding this to Karen, or?
I'm attempting to as we speak.
Okay. Karen, Mayor, if I may just maybe walk through those while Karen's waiting on that to come through. So
It's on its way.
okay, thank you, Scott. The first one is any signage, electrical connections, plumbing connections, mechanical connections, and open flame device shall be approved in advance and be in conformance with the city marshal code. That's number 1. When you get it, Karen, let me know, and I'll stop reading.
I'm refreshing.
Okay. And number 2, that all current state of Michigan, Calhoun County Health Department restrictions and guidelines related to COVID-19 be adhered to in the event area.
Oh, okay. I just received the document. Could you tell me what page you're starting on out of the 124?
It's probably page 115 if our pages are the same. It's the council report. And then under notes at the bottom of the first page, which is my page 115, number 1.
Sure. So we will not require any electrical, plumbing connections, mechanical connections of any sort. No open flame devices will be utilized as well. Health department, as I mentioned, we had a call with the health department. So when we have a health and safety plan, which we've shared with the council and reviewed with the city prior to sharing with the council. The barricades is not an issue. We can take care of that. We have stores on each end cap that are participating. Again, we're fine with removing and setting up all of our own equipment. That's fine. Tables, chairs, fixtures. Trash collection, we don't suspect that we will generate any, but we will definitely remove. We'll make sure everyone takes care of cleaning up their areas. And then, yes, we will keep the sidewalks clear. That was part of the benefit of being able to utilize other space for the displays, is that we can keep the sidewalks clear.
And then Karen, if you would go down to the recommendations, second paragraph there, I mentioned about insurance coverage. That would be the last point.
Okay, let's see, city owned. So I'm not familiar with this requirement. We have a lot of other events downtown, and obviously we don't use the city road. So is our coverage for the social district not sufficient? Did we end up having, I guess I would have to.
Karen, I can speak to that.
Understand this.
And council probably got some questions of me as well, but the last several events I've done, I've been researching an event process for the city. And one of the things I've noted from many other communities is that they do some co-insurance on utilizing the street. So somebody trips and falls. I just did this with Oaklawn with their hospitality run. Nonprofit insurance is pretty cheap. The value, I don't know. I'm going to have to consult with Attorney Revore, and I believe he might be on the call. He might be able to answer this a little more eloquently than I can, but it's just because you're going to have all these people in the streets. It's just a mechanism to protect the city. It'll be pretty much boilerplate language on any reports that I put out from this point on using city streets.
Certainly. Well, I'm being caught a little cold here, sadly. However, I will work with MEDA on what we need to do to get coverage as indicated here.
MEDA may even have it. I guess I am not familiar with that. It may be something they carry for their members already.
Yeah, that's what I'm suspecting. So let me touch base with them on that particular thing and we'll make sure we are covered.
And Karen, one thing on Blues Fest, I know Blues Fest, mainly because of the beer tent, does get a special policy it's a one-day event. So, but I think staff at MEDA could probably help you on that. If I know you're not going to have a beer tent out there, but
No.
so again, that would be just, I want to make sure that you're aware of those requirements before council decides on this issue. So that's all I have, Mayor.
Yeah, thank you. Duly noted.
Thank you, Tom. Another, just if council's taking a late look at the fiscal effects, I mean, closing the road for these, time periods is going to be a cost of about $4,000 to us with all the associated fees and work that we need to do for that. So that's just why I have a little bit of a hard time approving 4 in a row. And I would like to see the event proven maybe a little bit more. I understand the first one is not always going to be, the busiest, but, also just showing the participation with the retailers before we close down the main road would be something that I would hope to see. So I think that's, all I have for comments and questions. Any other questions from council regarding this request?
Karen, I think you've done a great job organizing this, and I would make a motion to approve all 4 events for the downtown bazaars.
Support.
All right, we have a motion from Member Rice and support from Member Traver, and we'll do a roll call vote, please.
Member Schwartz,
Yes.
Member Traver,
Yes.
Member Underhill,
Yes.
Member Wolfersberger,
Yes.
Mayor Karen,
No.
Member Gates,
Yes.
and Member Rice.
Yes.
Motion carried.
All right, thank you.
If I could make a comment, Mr. Mayor,
Please do.
I wonder if with MEDA, with their COVID relief fund they have for downtown businesses and area businesses, if they would use any of that money to offset the cost that the city is incurring for these events. It could be partial or all or whatnot, but it might be a fair recommendation to request that.
I certainly, think we could ask them and look into that. Thank you.
Well, we didn't waive the fees, so unless that's going to be made as a separate motion, it's not on the city at the moment.
The fees that the city incurs, so the police department, the city administration fees, the street fees, all those totals about $3,800. Those are the fees I was referring to.
Right, but I guess I've always read that language as unless we waive it, it gets billed to the event sponsor.
That is not my understanding, but if Tom, you could clarify, or Director McDonald.
I can't remember what the last one we did. And actually, I believe the last one was denied the request. But we would just need direction one way or the other. If you want to be charging this between Karen and myself or the staff, we can approach MEDA. Karen and I and Ryan sit on the MEDA board, so we could bring that request to them. Just need your direction.
I think this event falls directly into the wheelhouse of MEDA, so I would recommend bringing that to the MEDA board.
Okay, I guess between Ryan and Karen and myself, we can put a request together.
Sure.
As board members.
I'm okay with that.
Well, the only problem is I don't know that we have time to go through that process prior to advertising the event. And I would say the retailers do not have that money right now.
I would say for my 2 cents, I mean, unless MEDA has those, COVID funds in reserve to kick in some to offset it, I would not want to throw cold water on this event or make it any, additional costs on the retailers, or prevent this from going forward because we're trying to recoup those costs. I would prefer to eat those costs.
Yeah.
And see
It wasn't my understanding that the retailers group was paying for any of it at all. It was just the city, and I was trying to offset my recommendation was try to offset the city expense. And that MEDA kind of makes sense with their relief fund, and this is an event to help many of their own. So just a recommendation to help relieve the city, not the retailers group. I say we proceed as
And that wouldn't have
as
to be
approved.
for the first event. I mean, that can be, doesn't have to be approved. So.
Right.
All right, so Tom and Ryan will work on that.
Okay, thank you.
Ryan and Karen, I'll talk with MEDA staff tomorrow morning.
Thank you, Tom.
Thanks, Tom.
All right, that moves us down to item 12F on the agenda to schedule the public hearing for the fiscal year 2022 budget. Tom or Karen Lancaster, if either one of you have any comments.
We had a highlight discussion, a presentation at your last meeting. And we presented the budget, which if you did a hard copy, it's pretty extensive. I know you have electronic copies, but we asked for any questions to be prepared for tonight. Staff received no questions. So the next step is actually setting the public hearing to receive public comment on it, make any amendments at that time. There's a pretty extensive resolution. And really the best approach to that is if you plan to make any amendments to the budget as presented, we would have individual amendments added to the initial resolution. It would be your process, but we are here to answer any questions tonight. We have the entire director team on board here, and Karen, so we're available and want to continue with the process.
I had a question. I apologize for not sending it in ahead of time, but the one thing I noticed in the budget was that for public safety, it looked like from what I saw, it looked like we were about 400,000 higher. We were budgeted for 400,000 more. I know we had one additional employee on the public safety side, but I was curious about what the other costs are that's causing that to rise.
Sure, there are, we did budget for radios, which is a one-time expense, but really the bulk of the expense with public safety lies in pension and in healthcare. So there was a healthcare increase, as Tracy said, 6.47%. And then pension, we are on a, both for pension and retiree healthcare, we have to fund a little bit extra under a corrective action plan. And I actually budgeted for that this next year. It wasn't in this year's budget. So public safety is a big chunk of that expense. So they get a proportionate share of that extra funding. And so that's why you see that big jump. It's actually the only additional add they had besides the FTE is a one-time expense to buy additional radios.
Thank you very much.
Karen, I've been going through the agenda, or excuse me, the budget, and I do have, questions that I want to share with you and the council and Tom. What I'm finding myself running into is I'm taking a look at this and looking at the questions that I have, and I think it would be easier to make some decisions if I knew some more information, looking out on some of these on the budget. So, I know this is what next year is going to look like, but what are we projected for the next couple of years beyond that? And how do we make adjustments this year to, help, put us in a better position? Is there any way we could, schedule a time with you, or you could put something together for us to kind of give us a look at what the next few years are going to look like from a general standpoint?
Sure.
Would you have any recommendations on how that could be accomplished?
So either way or both. So I can put together some general fund projections for the next, let's say, 3 to 4 years out, and knowing they'd be conservative on revenue and, much like any finance director, right? We don't want to overshoot what we're going to have. So I can put those together and send those out, and then to whomever's interested, we could just schedule, appointments to come in and go through questions. If that works for folks, I'm happy to do that. It is a big document to get through, and we have a lot going on. So to the extent, Mayor, that you have, questions that you think would be of interest to everyone, you and I can get together and I can prepare answers to those in writing to share with the council as well.
Yeah, I think that would be a great idea. And if we can do that sooner rather than later, it is a big document. And of course, I'm trying to get through it as quickly as possible, but there's a lot to go over. So I'd be happy to do that. And then if any other council members, have questions or would feel more comfortable maybe discussing the answers, at a special meeting or in person, if we could do it outside, that might help with the dialogue and kind of come with some solutions on how we, move forward with an appropriate budget.
And
My
again,
thought,
go ahead, Jim. Sorry.
No, it just, as I'm going through this and I have questions, I appreciate other insight and dialogue from other council members instead of just my question and then just answering it. Is there any way at all we can do a work session, or even if it's outside, if the weather's decent enough? Or, I mean, in the past, we've always sat down and discussed and talked and got explanations right at the same time from different points of view. Just asking a question, get an answer, how do we follow up? I just find it very difficult especially when we're talking about going in over $400,000 into reserves again. I just think I would like to get some more input from fellow council members and staff. So just my 2
Well,
cents.
A work session might be more appropriate. Council.
I agree.
Is that
I
what
agree
you're saying?
100%. A work session, that way you can hear each other's comments. We can either be outside, which is somewhat difficult with noise, but the other option, we can look at the law enforcement training room being spread out, and the sound is very good in that room. So that would be the location if we're going to be inside. So if the council wants to schedule a work session that we could agree to tonight, we can get it on the schedule. I am going to be asking for another work session in the next agenda item, actually a special meeting at that one. So I'm not sure if we want to combine those two into one meeting. That would be an option. But we are available on whenever you want to get together. I think in-person work sessions are always better. It's been a little hard with COVID, so we are open to dates and times.
And that's just my opinion. I don't know if the other council even want to do that. It's just easier for me is all.
All right, so any other thoughts from council members if we put together a date for a special meeting or a work session for this, would that work well for everyone?
I think a work session would be great. I do have a question, and I will also apologize for not getting this out there ahead of time, but I'm just curious about our overall debt position and whether it's an area of concern, how we compare to other communities of our size, that type of question, whether it's something where we need to start examining, what we're bonding and what long-term debt we're taking on.
So the debt position under state law has to be, 10% of assessed value. So the city of Marshall is far under their debt limit. And, but necessarily state law doesn't mean that's necessarily the best rule of thumb. The, debt financing, how you use debt financing, it's different for every community and what works well. But overall, I can tell you that I'm not uncomfortable with the debt that you're carrying right now, if that helps. I know we can get into some more specifics later, but I don't think it's unreasonable.
Okay, thank you.
Also, concerning the debt, in page 38 of your budget, there's a debt summary there that can help you on some of the thresholds that Karen just mentioned. But so, Mr. Mayor and the council, if we can work out a date, and maybe in conjunction, if we're going to be together, because we are recommending that the meeting we hold next week be in person, originally at Ketchum Park, but if we're going to spend more time, we may lose sunlight if we start at 7. And so again, we could meet up at law enforcement for both meetings. We'll call it a special council meeting, because we do want direction on the Marshall House proposals, which again is the next item on your agenda.
Tom, do you feel that with what we need to discuss for the Marshall House, we could accomplish both within that time frame, or would it be too much for one meeting to cover?
I guess first of all, Eric, the proposals, the 5 proposals that will be coming in Wednesday, that AHA will be putting a grid together and getting it to us by Friday. Is that an hour? or less?
Yeah, should be. I mean, the whole point of it is for council to review the 5 proposals and pick a couple that they'd be interested in interviewing. So that's the goal of that 5.
And typically, we have gone through the budget, I guess on an average, an hour and a half, I think has been maybe the average. And, some years we've done 2 hours, some years we've done a half an hour. So I think it can be done. If the council members could meet at 6, that would give us a head start. But again, I'm not sure if that's possible with all of your jobs.
Did you have a date that you were looking at specifically?
No, I did not. That's the week of May 10th. I guess May 12th would be a planning commission meeting. Tricia, is there a planning commission meeting for that night?
I have not received anything for the meeting yet.
Okay. So again, I would say you have Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday nights. I always try to avoid Fridays for all of you and myself, but so I guess the question would be, do you want to?
I move that we have a meeting on May 10th at 6 p.m. on Zoom.
What was that date, Councilmember Rice?
May at 6, actually in person, not on Zoom.
I think she said May 10th, 6 p.m.
I will not be able to attend, but I'll do what's best for council. I can still get my questions in.
Could you attend on the Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday?
Sorry. I'm sorry, I scheduled my week away between the 2 weeks, so I would be back until Friday, the 17th, or the 14th, is it? 14th, because we have a meeting on the 17th. But please, just do what's best for council, and I can get my questions to you or call in and listen at least.
If we meet at the law enforcement, they have Wi-Fi, we can offer a Zoom option.
Yeah, we can accommodate that.
The 10th works for me.
I'm good with the 10th.
Same here.
Karen, how does that work for you?
That's good. The 10th is great.
All right, well then let's move forward with the 10th then.
Okay, and so if you can make a motion to have a special meeting for May 10th to to deal with proposals on Marshall House and to review the FY22 budget.
Make a motion for Monday, May 10th at 6 p.m. at the Marshall Law Enforcement Place to talk about the Marshall House and the budget.
Support.
All right, we have a motion from Member Rice, support from Member Gates. We'll do a roll call vote, please.
Member Traver,
Yes.
Member Underhill,
Yes.
Member Wolfersberger,
Yes.
Mayor Karen,
Yes.
Member Gates,
Yes.
Member Rice,
Yes.
and Member Schwartz.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. The second part of that would be to set the public hearing. The recommendation is to schedule a public hearing for Monday, May 17th, 2021 to receive comment on the fiscal year 2022 general fund, special revenue funds, enterprise funds, and internal service funds budget.
So moved.
Or
A motion from member Gates, and was that support from member Underhill?
yes.
All right, we'll do a roll call vote, please.
Member Underhill,
Yes.
member Wolfersberger,
Yes.
Mayor Karen,
Yes.
member Gates,
Yes.
member Rice,
Yes.
member Schwartz,
Yes.
and member Traver.
Yes.
Motion carried.
All right, thank you. That moves us to 12G, the special meeting for Marshall House proposals, which we just scheduled previously. So we will move on to 12H, the work session for strategic planning. We would like to set a work session for August 13th, and that would be at 5 p.m. And then August 14th at 8 p.m., 8 a.m. For strategic planning with Dr. Bender.
So move.
Support.
We have a motion from member Schwartz, a support from member Wolfersberger. We'll do a roll call vote, please. Oh, Tom, go ahead. I'm sorry.
That would also be at the Marshall Law Enforcement Center.
Thank you.
Member Rice,
Yes.
member Schwartz,
Yes.
member Traver,
Yes.
member Underhill,
Yes.
member Wolfersberger,
Yes.
Mayor Karen,
Yes.
and member Gates.
Yes.
Motion carried.
All right.
Thank you.
That moves us to appointments and elections. Item 13A, the appointment of the city attorneys. You all received letters from the city attorneys last week. So my recommendation would be to reappoint David Revore as the city attorney and John Sullivan and John Brundage as the city prosecuting attorneys.
So moved.
Support.
We have a motion from member Wolfersberger, support from member Rice. Any comments or questions?
I'll just make a comment that I truly appreciate the work that both the attorneys have done, or their offices have done for the city. I think we've gotten great advice from them, and I look forward to working with them in the future.
Absolutely. They're a great part of our team and help us continue to move forward. All right, we'll do a roll call vote, please.
Member Schwartz,
Yes.
member Traver,
Yes.
member Underhill,
Yes.
member Wolfersberger,
Yes.
Mayor Karen,
Yes.
member Gates,
Yes.
and member Rice.
Yes.
Motion carried.
All right, thank you. That brings us to public comment on non-agenda items. Anyone wishing to address the council may do so for a maximum of 5 minutes, stating your name and address for the record. Please indicate your desire to speak using the raise hand function on Zoom. All right, seeing no raised hands, we'll move on to council and manager communications. Are there any council members that would like to speak at this time? Member Rice?
All right, you heard it here first. The ribbon cutting / grand opening of the new terminal at Brooks Airport will be Sunday, July 11th. Time and details to be announced. Pencil it in, City Council.
Excellent, thank you. Any other comments from council members? Member Traver?
Just a request with our electric rates going to be increasing soon. I have talked to some people in the community about that, and we're wondering if there's any sort of information that can be put out by staff on the social media or wherever else makes sense about just certain items that just, I guess, some information for people to know, like what costs them a lot of electricity in their house. So if they were to go away for a month, if it would make sense to unplug something that uses up a lot of electricity, or what are high electricity things. I know we've had light bulb programs, so if they haven't swapped out to LEDs, like that's something to look into. Just kind of a FYI on what might use up a lot of electricity, and that might be able to help some folks out, or it's just good to know. So that's all.
There's some
Quite
very
honestly.
good things. Yeah, there's very good things out there from Edison Electric Institute and a few of the other American Public Power. We will get those and get them out there, because a lot of people don't realize just how much draws certain items in their house. So it was a very good point. Thank you.
Yep. Yeah, I'll be the first to admit I have no idea what's drawing a lot of electricity and what's not. So it'll be good to read. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Traver. Any additional council member comments this evening?
I just want to remind anyone who isn't aware that the farmers market, the summer market started this last Saturday. There was a great turnout, and it's taking place every Saturday on Green Street. So come support the farmers market.
Excellent. Thank you, Member Gates. Clerk Nelson, anything this evening?
Nothing, thank you.
Thank you, Manager Tarkowitz.
Nothing this evening.
All right. Well, thank you all. I hope you have a good evening, and I will call this meeting adjourned. We will see you next week.